Am I the a-hole for laughing when I saw my newborn niece and she's black? Controversial title, I know, but listen. I, 21 male, have a brother 32 male, who's married to my soon-to-be ex-sister-in-law, 27 female. I'm Korean American, and my grandfather still has our family genealogy dating back to our great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents, all of whom were Korean. Meanwhile, my sister-in-law and her family whom I've met are all white. I'm currently in college, so I wasn't home much, but of course I took a trip back home when my brother said his wife was in labor. I got there after my niece was born, and when I arrived, my parents and their in-laws were outside the room. The situation was very tense. So my dumbass, trying to lighten the mood, barged into the room with a "Ta-da, best uncle is here, where's my niece?" kind of entrance. My brother wasn't in the room like I expected, but then I saw a very beautiful baby who looked nothing like either my brother or his wife. Her skin was visibly darker, and her features were definitely not like those of a white or Asian baby. She didn't even look mixed, but she was adorable. I was stunned, flabbergasted, and so dumbfounded that I could only let out a laugh, before apologizing and awkwardly excusing myself from the room. For the record, I wasn't laughing at the baby, but at the situation I realized after seeing her. I know genetic mutations exist, but that only crossed my mind after I managed to process the situation. They did a DNA test, and sure enough, the baby isn't my brother's. What followed was a huge series of dramatic events. My brother filled me in after everything settled down. She did cheat on him, but it was a drunken mistake, and she swore she used contraception. He decided to get a divorce for obvious reasons, but my sister-in-law is still trying to win him back. When my brother cut off contact with her, she went on a rampage and started blowing up everyone else's phones, mine included. Other than begging for my brother, she keeps bringing up that she knows she's a garbage human being, but insists her baby doesn't deserve to be laughed at. I try to explain, but now I'm being labeled as racist. My brother says I should just apologize and move on, but I don't feel like apologizing again, but I'm all for moving on. Am I the a-hole? Should I apologize? Edit. I forgot to add a crucial detail. I asked my parents first in front of their in-laws, and no one said anything until my father told me to just see my sister-in-law, without giving me any explanation. I thought my supposed niece was born with a disability or deformity, or that the delivery had been very difficult. That's why I tried to lighten the mood and expected my brother to be there. Sorry, LMAO. Looks like it's time for me to go to bed. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. I wasn't laughing at your baby. I was laughing because in that moment I realized that, in your own words, you are a garbage human being. I am sorry if you thought I was laughing at the baby. I was actually laughing at you. Also, it's a pretty normal reaction to laugh in the face of awkwardness. I'm pretty sure scientists have studied it. Not the a-hole. She is grasping at straws. Lots of people laugh when they are nervous, and you can't always control when you laugh. You weren't laughing at the baby anyway. You were laughing at the knowledge that something big was about to go down. You can apologize if you want to, but there really isn't any reason to, unless you feel like it, because she isn't going to be your sister-in-law anymore, so you probably won't see much of her. 2. She got caught with her hand in a cookie jar, so to speak, which is actually tragically funny. Nervous laughter is honestly so embarrassing. I remember laughing when telling people that my grandfather died because I was so upset about it. But the vulnerability of telling people I was experiencing grief made me feel extremely uncomfortable. So instead of showing my grief in an appropriate way, I hysterically chuckled instead, and looked like a huge a-hole who was laughing at an elderly person's death. Not the a-hole. You weren't laughing at the baby. You were laughing at the situation and the surprise. A simple statement that you think the baby is beautiful and that you are sorry for laughing when you first met would be fine. You were just surprised. Other than that, you hopefully won't ever need to see her again. I apologized immediately for laughing and explained that it was in no way directed at the baby before leaving the room. I also explained it again through text. I guess I should have added that I found her baby cute as well. My brother absolutely forbids me and everyone else in the family from meeting her, so I've got that part covered. Should I really apologize again? Not gonna lie, I also feel bitter because she cheated on my brother, which is why I feel reluctant to apologize once again when I've already done so. No, you already apologized in the moment. Time to block her since you won't be having a relationship with her in the future. Next story. Am I the a-hole for blowing up at my sick husband when he asked for help with our toddler? I plan on sending this post to my husband once the verdict is in, whichever way it goes, so I'll add as much of his perspective as I can. Our toddler was sick through the weekend. I was up with him one night from 12:15 to 2:45 and off and on the next night. I probably got 10 to 12 hours of broken sleep the entire weekend. Yesterday, my husband mentioned he was starting to feel a little sick. Last night, I went to bed early, hoping to catch up on rest. Throughout the night, my husband woke me up way more often than my toddler ever does, even on a bad night. Some of the times were not directly his fault, but other times, I felt like he was being inconsiderate. 1. He snored loudly in my ear. 2. He asked for another blanket because he had the chills. I told him it was at the foot of the bed. He asked for help and reminded me that he helps me when I'm sick, and that he'd still do the morning routine with our son. 3. He had a nightmare, and I had to shake him awake. Normal. 4. He whispered at Alexa to ask for the time. 5. He asked for another blanket. I gave him mine. 6. He made a phone call, in bed, and left a full-volume voicemail for his work to let them know he'd need to take a sick day. 7. At 5:30 in the morning, he woke me to ask if I could do the wake-up routine with our son. I do bedtime. He does wake up. At this point, I blew up. I expressed how mad I was that he had woken me up all night long, and now I had to wake up early to do what he said he'd still handle, all while I didn't get to stay home and catch up on sleep. He said I was in the wrong because marriage is in sickness and in health. I immediately got up to get ready. He said I didn't have to start getting ready so early. I told him yes, I did because I start work at 7:30. I barely make it to work on time when I wake up at 6. And now I had to unexpectedly skip my shower, get my toddler ready, prepare his food for the day, feed him breakfast, drop him off at daycare, and then take myself to work. I told him he was a grown man with a cold, that he robbed me of the rest I needed, and that I'd be sleeping on the couch tonight. At that point, I asked for space, and we haven't talked since. I was late for work, which is a big deal at my job. I might be the a-hole for blowing up at my husband when he asked for support during an unexpected illness. Am I the a-hole for being mad at my sick husband? Not the a-hole. It's one thing if you slept all night and he was up all night sick, then woke you up to ask you to handle the morning routine. It's another when he willfully kept you awake, waking you up for extra blankets, asking the time, and making a loud phone call is absolutely willful behavior. Your anger is valid. If this is a one-time thing, when he's better, circle back and have a discussion. If this is his typical man flu/cold behavior, he needs to stop it. Sleep deprivation is cruel. Not the a-hole 100%. How do you wake someone up to get a blanket that was at the foot of the bed and start making phone calls in bed while someone is sleeping? That is just rude. If he doesn't know where the blankets are in the home, why? Does he not live there? Asking Alexa what time it is, knowing his phone is right there, gets me more than the blankets, I think. It feels like he's mad that he's sick and is taking it out on her. I'm curious if that's their normal dynamic or what. Yeah, definitely, because Alexa doesn't whisper back. She tells the whole neighborhood. This guy doesn't know how lucky he is, because I would have kicked him to the couch about 3 days ago. His mother's couch. Not the a-hole. Being sick, working, and caring for a sick child is terrible. But your husband is an adult and needs to be somewhat self-sufficient and considerate. He can't help that he had a nightmare or snored, but waking you up for a blanket twice, asking for the time, and taking or making calls in the early hours from bed is incredibly self-centered. And he did not help during the weekend when toddler was sick. Next story. Am I the a-hole for choosing to buy concert tickets instead of using my money to host my son's first birthday? A 35 female had a baby, 7-month-old male last year. It was a rough pregnancy. I lost a parent due to a terminal illness while pregnant, struggled to complete postgrad, and then developed preeclampsia, requiring a C-section. During postpartum, I struggled with depression, anxiety, and, at times, due to sleep deprivation, hallucinations. I try to shoulder most of the child care while working from home, and my husband, 35 male, helps where he can. He doesn't experience the same sleepless nights I do, and doesn't handle the majority of child care like I do, because he has a high-pressure job that involves performing intricate surgeries. As much as I love my son, I am exhausted and sad most of the time. I got help for my PPD, but some feelings just don't go away. I grieve the life I used to have, and nobody or nothing prepared me for how consuming parenting can be. I decided I really want to do something for myself and bought tickets to the concert of an artist I truly adore. I plan to finance the entire trip myself, traveling to the venue, purchasing tickets, etc. The concert also falls around the time my son turns 1. I decided not to host a party because I personally think he's too young to enjoy it, and it would just be a waste of money. My plan is to travel solo to this concert, let my husband take leave to care for our son, and then return home. In my eyes, this was an opportunity to splurge on myself for once, and if I wasn't hosting a first-year party for my son, that was totally fine. My husband is very supportive of this decision and already has his leave lined up. However, when I told my friends and family, I received a pretty adverse reaction. They've been commenting that I'm selfish and that my son deserves a big celebration to mark his first 365 days around the sun. They argue that even if he doesn't enjoy or remember his party, the photos would mean a lot to him in the future. I explained that I plan to have a small private celebration with just my husband and me, but everyone seems to be judging me so harshly that I'm starting to feel awful. Am I the a-hole? And more importantly, am I a bad mother? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. I think your plan to celebrate your little one with a small private party is just right. At 12 months, kids are a lot more aware, excited and engaged than they are at 7 months. But they still won't remember it. They may or may not appreciate seeing other people. I suspect a bit of a happy kerfuffle with just you and your husband will be more than enough. Maybe his first bite of cake and a few gifts to open. Take pics of the cuteness and move on. Your plan sounds great to me. Maybe stop sharing the plans with friends since you're just facing backlash. Loved ones telling you you're selfish is pretty wild to me. Do these people know you? Do they love and support you? Because shaming a mother for a choice like this is not what loving, supportive friends and family do. What they could do is ask if there's anything they can take off your plate, or if there's a way they can help make a bigger celebration work for you. Maybe by offering to bring decorations and help organize things. But standing back and insulting you for not going all out is infuriating. This is the thing. I am so tired of the expectation that people must do all this. Engagement parties, weddings, showers, kids' birthdays, etc. No one offers to help. They want you to do it their way, and if you don't, they torture you about it. They make the entire thing completely miserable and expect you to foot the bill to endure the miseries so they can have Facebook photos to brag to their friends about. If the people around you can't be trusted to have nice things, we shouldn't give them nice things. Excuse my French, but you freaking go, girl. I've heard of some great first birthday ideas, but this is the best one. Your baby has everything he needs and wants. He doesn't care about a birthday party. The people who do care about the birthday party care about it for their own selfish reasons, so why listen to them? You deserve this, and you've done the work for the last 365 days, so go celebrate that. Not the a-hole. Totally not the a-hole. If those people want to host a party for your son, let them. Otherwise, you deserve a break, and it is no one else's business but yours and your husband's. The first year of motherhood can be hell, and if you can get away for a few days to find yourself again, you should absolutely do it. Cheers, and have a great time. Last story. Am I the a-hole for not saying hi to my dad's girlfriend? So, me, 14 female, and my dad, 44 male, were super close my entire life. I was the textbook daddy's girl until about a year ago. For some backstory, my parents divorced 2 years ago after being together for 25 years. I later found out that my dad had been texting one of his co-workers, 34 female, for up to 3 hours a day. I thought it was weird but didn't think much of it. Then she started calling my dad and sending gifts to me and my brother. That's when my mom stepped in, which ultimately led to their divorce. For some reason, my dad denied everything. But surprise, just a couple of months after the divorce, he told me he was with that same coworker now. Understandably, I was pissed. But every time I told him it was too soon to be in a relationship, he ignored me and responded with, "You just don't want me to be happy." 6 months later, he announced that she was moving in. Again, I was pissed. I never liked her. My dad tried to convince me she had done nothing wrong. But in my mind, no woman with any self-respect would be messaging a married man for hours a day. To make things worse, while my mom was dealing with a brain bleed, my dad decided to move his girlfriend in. But that's a whole other story. So now I live with her half the time. I stayed in my room every time I was at my dad's house, keeping my door all the way closed. Apparently, she felt awful about everything, but I stood my ground and didn't interact with her. I do around 20 hours of dance a week, so I was able to avoid her most of the time, but weekends were the issue. One morning, I left my door open while I was on my phone. My dad's girlfriend walked by and said hi to me. I didn't respond, and she kept walking. Then my dad stormed into my room with a "we need to talk." At that point, I was so done. It turned into a screaming match. He called me narcissistic and childish, and I started crying and told him to get out of my room. Nothing got resolved, and it certainly didn't make me feel any differently about her. Now, I refuse to go to my dad's house at all, especially since I've been diagnosed with a heart condition. I'm perfectly content staying at my mom's full-time, but I miss what I used to have with my dad. So, am I the a-hole for not saying hi to my dad's girlfriend? Not the a-hole. Your adult dad wants you to act like an adult. Dude, you were 14 and dealing with a lot of changes in a very short time. Your mom's health, the shift in family dynamics, and all of that on top of being an early teen with all those stressors. You're not the a-hole for thinking badly about someone who played a role in breaking up a 25-year marriage. But let's also remember, you were on the phone when the girlfriend said hi. You were busy. Someone who was actually acting like an adult wouldn't have a bruised ego just because someone in another conversation didn't say hi in passing. All this to say, if you think older you will regret not reconnecting with your dad, go ahead and get that closure. But if you're not ready, take your time. Personally, I'd tell his girlfriend to screw off, but I've had to get stronger and more abrasive to keep people from hurting me. The strength is nice, but you shouldn't have to be that strong. The girlfriend wasn't the only one responsible for breaking up a marriage. This was 50-50 on your dad and his girlfriend. OP, not the a-hole. Actually, you have it backwards in one regard. You said, no woman with any self-respect would message a married man for 3 hours a day. What about a married man? It sounds like you're blaming her for your parents' divorce, but the person who destroyed the marriage was your father. A marriage is a commitment between two people. No one from the outside can break it up, unless one of those two lets them. Your father was the one who stepped outside of his marriage for this woman. And it could have been anyone. Now, I don't know where you're from, but in the US, you have the right to never say a single word to anyone for the rest of your life if you choose. So, you're free to do what you want. But you also have to deal with the consequences. The real question is, are those consequences worth it to you? I totally understand what you mean. I think I'm just still in denial over the whole thing. My family was so close for my whole life, I don't even know what happened.